segue into this next question that I have. Okay, so both Boren and CLS focus on these critical need languages. So knowing that, how did you choose your study abroad programs? How did you pick? Some went through USC, some programs USC doesn't, some countries, USC doesn't have a study abroad program there. So how did you even begin that process of selecting, knowing that you have to focus on language learning? Maybe I'll go back to Edith, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no. So I wanted to be able to graduate on time. So I wanted to go through a USC program because I think if you don't, you can only transfer back something like 8 credits per semester or per year. So I chose one of the 4 Japan programs that USC offers. And I specifically chose Nanzan, one, because it's, not as expensive as the other programs. And 2, it does have an intensive language program. Now, the other programs, I do believe they also have intensive language options, like an option to do the intensive language program. At Nanzan, there's no option. You automatically are enrolled in the intensive language. That's the only thing they offer. But the nice thing about Nanzan is that they split it up into 2 different classes. So when it transfers back to USC, it counts as 2 different classes. So that enabled me to not only graduate on time, but graduate a semester early. So it was obviously the intensive language component is very important to learn the language, but also there's like logistics involved that made me choose Nanzan over the other 3.
Great, thank you. Back to Mia. How did you pick yours?
Yeah, so originally I knew I wanted to be in Rio de Janeiro because I had visited before and I really liked it and it was pretty. But the more I researched, the more I didn't really find any comprehensive kind of programs that incorporated intensive language learning and cultural activities and a host family. Those were 3 components I was mostly looking for. And out there in the language world, there are like language schools for sure. But at least in Brazil, there weren't any that like provided those 3 together, which I could have done, but I talked to some previous Boren scholars who also went to Brazil, and they recommended this program in another city called Florianopolis, which I didn't really know and didn't consider. So once I looked into that, the program was called USAC, and it was pretty much a standard study abroad program. Like they offered a bunch of support and like cultural activities and a host family and intensive language courses at the beginning of each semester for like 5 weeks straight. And since it had all of that and it was very affordable too, it was very compelling to go with that. I will say though, since I had already technically graduated or like walked and finished all my classes, I felt like the program was a bit like hand holding a little. And so I had to be in the program. So I had to like take classes and like, do more like college-y things that I didn't necessarily want to do. So I think it's important to consider like how independent you are and like how comfortable you are navigating a city yourself. And if you like really want that extra support from a program like a study abroad organization, then I would recommend going that way. But if you're fine, figuring out stuff like that, and sometimes it can be fun and challenging, then go with like a language school and like pair it with other stuff.
Great. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, that's really great. And I agree with all of that. I would say for me, so I mentioned at the beginning that there's now the Indonesian Flagship Initiative, which basically they have this program and you just do the program. It's like a summer US institute called CIASI. And then in the fall semester, and I think you can do in the spring as well, the Indonesian Overseas Program in Malang, in Eastern Java. So I did the Indonesian Overseas Program so I can speak to that. But basically what drew me to that specifically was, for me, I actually did not want to be in a major city. There was definitely a temptation to pick that just because, it'd be really cool, like if you're in the capital or you're in Bali. But I kind of thought to myself that if I was in a place where there would be a lot of tourists or a lot of English speakers, and it would kind of defeat the point of doing a language immersion program. I mean, like if the best, absolute number one best language program in a country happens to be in like the biggest, coolest city, then go for it. But I would encourage you to challenge yourself and maybe go off the beaten path a little bit. And for me, so with Boren, they want you to pick a program that's very focused on language immersion. And unfortunately, a lot of the programs in countries tend to be for people who don't have any language experience and aren't interested in the language experience. So like learning, like taking like an econ course or an international relations course in English. So just making sure you do the research about the courses and the language. And the program I did, Indonesian Overseas Program, was really great about, laying out the details about the language immersion and about the courses and the number of hours. Because with Boren, they really want to see that you've done the research, and they want to see like, oh, after taking courses XYZ, I will be able to do XYZ or ABC. So it's doing that research is great. And then for me too, like Mia said, having a host family was really important for me too, and my program offered that. So.
Yeah, really great. Boren appreciates that. All the nuances and the different circles you can get yourself in to be practicing the language formally and informally, they appreciate. I can keep going down these questions, but I noticed the group's getting a little smaller. So I wonder, can we open it up? Does anybody have questions that you would like to go for and ask the panel? I don't see any in the chat yet, but if you want to turn your video on, you're welcome to, or I just want to give that space so that you can get your question answered.
I could ask a question if nobody has one.
Great, thank you.
Hey, you guys are all doing a great job. I guess my question is just, what were some of your biggest doubts when you were, getting into it, and how did you, overcome that? Because I feel like that's kind of relevant right now for everyone feeling a bit doubtful.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's the idea of going to a country and spending your entire time learning a language. So for me, I had never studied Indonesian before. USC doesn't offer Indonesian, so I was kind of doubtful of just my capability or my ability to go to a new country and like just survive or even thrive, having never been there or never studied the language before. So just encouraging yourself to be bold and go for things even if you don't necessarily have experience. Another doubt I had too was during my first round of essays that I received it was good feedback, but it was tough feedback. And I'm so grateful for the feedback because it needed to be said, and it made my second round or third round of essays so much better. But it was tough, and it sometimes, especially I was like, I think just a sophomore at the time, so it's tough to receive criticism. But don't doubt yourself. They're giving you criticism because they see so much potential in you. If they didn't think that you could write a fantastic application and be a good applicant and get the opportunity, they wouldn't even be giving you that kind of feedback. So that can be doubtful too, but just realize that it's all for the best, and to take it in stride. So
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's a vulnerable place to be regardless. I mean, anytime you're applying for something, right? I mean, it's a competitive process and you don't know what's on the other end, but we encourage applicants that no matter what the outcome is, no matter what, you'll have a nice portfolio for yourself. You'll have a written statement of what matters to you and why. And that's something that you can take away from the process regardless of the results. But Alex is right. I mean, and our committee it's been, well, since I've been doing it, I know Peter's on the call who's been helping tremendously with it. It's the faculty are well aware of what Boren is looking for. USC has had a very high success rate with Boren candidates as well. And so, they meet with you and they no time to lose, right? But that's why we start the process early. You know, you apply in November with the campus deadline, and then the final deadline isn't until like early February, I think. So there's a lot of time through the winter break to work on your rewrites and do that soul searching. But if you do it right, it really helps you in all avenues of, you know, your academic and personal experience as well. All right, maybe, well, can we open it up again for another? I don't think everybody needs to answer each question. Does anybody else have a question? Oh, I think I see Jalen hand raised, a couple hand raised, great.
Hello.
Hello.
I have a question. I am thinking about studying abroad my spring semester. I was wondering if that would, I have two questions actually, would that impede the process at all? And then my second question, I apologize. My second question is, the senior process, I'll be a senior next year. So I want to know just a little bit more about the kind of halting my graduation. I just want to know if I can make sure, I guess I can do that, or how that would look like a little bit more.
Okay, so just to, sorry, Jalen, to make sure I understand. So impede your process, meaning you just want to go abroad for the spring?
Yeah, I was just thinking about studying abroad my spring semester. As long as I guess, get in the application stuff by November and be able to meet with you all virtually in January, would that be an option or?
Well, you know, timeline wise, so you apply in, yeah, so, well, you're familiar with the process, right? You apply in early spring to then go abroad for the next spring. You know, so, you know, Boren, right? I mean, they have two categories. You're either going abroad for the non-academic year for a semester or the full academic year. And they define a full academic year as at least 25 weeks abroad. So frankly, I've never seen a USC student who applies just for the semester and wins. So I really would encourage you to think about, maybe you can tackle like a winter program plus the spring, like get it to add up, 2 programs and get them to add up to 25 weeks at least.
Okay, I apologize. Right? I misspoke. I mean, I want to study abroad through USC through my spring semester, but do Boren for the year after. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, that's fine. Oh, yeah. Okay. So you would just delay your graduation date. You'd apply as a senior while you're still enrolled and delay your graduation date and go abroad for the academic year. Absolutely. And so that can be a combination of summer into fall or fall into the next summer. But it is a good point though, even though I misunderstood, you know, make sure you're proposing at least 25 weeks abroad in these programs. They don't have to be in the same city. That's okay. Thank you. Was that all of your question? Okay. Great. Okay, let's go with Tanya. If I'm pronouncing, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing. Tanya has a question.
You're good. It's Tanaya. That's all right. And thank you. I had 2 questions. So I'm a little more interested in the critical language study scholarship. So 2 questions about it. One was, how competitive is it? Like, how likely is someone to get it? And the second question is, can you apply for it like after you've graduated? Like, let's say it's your senior year and you've just graduated, can you apply for the summer right after that? And how does that work?
Thank you. Willa.
Yes. So I would say with most external fellowships, you're looking at a fairly competitive pool. That's you know, what defines them. They are competitive opportunities. CLS doesn't publish their exact selection numbers because they don't have quotas by language. So to give you context, there's languages you can apply to that require no prior study in the language. And then all the way up to 2 or 3 languages where you need to have at least 2 years. So obviously the pools will look different. Size of the pool may be bigger for the languages that don't require prior study. But again, they don't publish exact numbers. You can go to our website and see prior recipients of the CLS that applied as a USC student as well, just to get a sense of the numbers that we see. But we don't have great data going back past a year ago as to how many applied. So that's a recent insight that CLS gives us. And I would say that, you know, and CLS echoes this, don't let that be the only factor you consider. Yes, it's competitive, but we would say as long as you can look through the fellowship and say, I meet this criteria, I have a strong argument for why I would like to participate, and sort of what you're going to get out of it, then as Katie mentioned, you can gain a lot from the application process as well. And then the rest is kind of just as the chips fall with the national selection process. As far as the timing of your application, you can absolutely, and I believe one of the, or two of the panelists might have done it this way or talked about this, but the CLS can be completed after you graduate as long as you apply while you're enrolled. So the application deadline is in November for the following summer. So another example of planning well in advance. So if you apply in November of your senior year, you can go abroad on the CLS the summer directly after you graduate. That's permissible.
Thank you. Let's go to Kristen next.
I was just wondering if you could talk more about, like, after doing Boren, like how you satisfied or found a job for like the federal government thing, just because I read that and that kind of threw me off.
Yeah, that's a great question. You got to one in my lineup. So thank you, Kristen. And we'd love to hear from all panelists for this. What are you doing now and how have you fulfilled or are planning to fulfill your government service requirement? We'll start back with Edith, please.
So I have not fulfilled my requirement yet. I actually just got an email like a month ago saying I'm on my 1-year limit, but that's because I haven't told them that I'm a student. So I just have to tell them and then I can get it delayed, because you can have it delayed as long as you're a student. So there are a couple avenues I've been looking at. I am interested in fulfilling my requirement through maybe a contracting organization that maybe contracts with USAID or State Department. But I think that, yeah, right now I'm just kind of hiding out in grad school, avoiding that. But one of the things that Boren does, it has a great alumni network once you come out of it. And of course, NCEP also sends out the different job opportunities every once in a while. But one of the things that the Boren Alumni Network has is this mentor-mentee program. And I don't know if anybody else has tried it out yet, but I tried it out at the beginning of this year. And they partnered me with somebody who has kind of similar interest areas as me, but he did Boren in Thailand, whereas I did it in Japan. But we had like similar interest in like climate change issues, environmental issues, NGO work, things like that. And so he actually, through, you know, talking with him and meeting some of his connections, got me a virtual internship with the Stockholm Environment Institute, which is a pretty large international NGO that does work on environmental issues. And I'm hoping I can use that internship in the future. They definitely want me to come in person eventually when that's possible. And again, you can work that way to like, you can fulfill the Boren requirement through contracting organizations. You don't have to work directly for like the DoD or the State Department or things like that. Boren, NCEP goes into they have like a guidebook of like ways to fulfill. But I definitely recommend, if you do the Boren, to look into the mentor-mentee program. They do it every year. They have a new cycle. And it's a great way to, you know, form that relationship and meet and, you know, connect with possible job opportunities in the future.
Great, thank you, Edith. Yeah, it's an important point. It's the entire second essay for the Boren Scholarship. You're writing about where you see yourself working for the federal government. So, and you also have to create a feasible path to get there. You know, you're not going to propose that you're going to be the director of the CIA after undergrad. You know, you're going in as an analyst. You know, it's that you have to understand what kind of jobs are available and feasible to get, and give the suggestions about how you're going to go about it. Is a master's degree, you know, you don't want to propose something that requires a master's degree before you'd even be eligible for that job. So you have to put in your due diligence to understand the different bureaus and areas of potential interest and the feasibility side. Boren has really made a concerted effort to make that, they're just clamping down on that a bit more, because again, I think they're getting tired of seeing a lot of folks coming in, seeing that, you know, that they're going to be a foreign service officer. You know, I mean, that can be your path, but what are your tangible steps to get there in a very concrete way is what that essay is looking for. So it's the seriousness of that federal service piece that they're looking at. Thank you, Kristen. I appreciate it. Okay, let's go to Mia. What are you doing and where are you going in life? Answer all those questions.